I'm ambivalent. In fact, that's my new favorite word.
Do you know what that means?
I don't care.
If it's your favorite word, I would have thought.
It means I don't care. That's what it means.
On the contrary, ambivalence suggests strong feelings in opposition. The word suggests that you are torn between two opposing courses of action.
Will I stay or will I go?
Am I sane or am I crazy?
Those aren't courses of action.
They can be, dear, for some.
You know, it may surprise you to know that your perpetual lateness has actually been discussed on this podcast before. So, I mean, I'm kind of impressed that you're here within the hour.
Dude, I've amended the lateness thing long ago here. So here.
Oh, you got better, did you? As he gets up and walks off the stage.
Yeah, actually, here just to quick to. Yeah, man. You know what it was? It was actually I was working with the Mind Site back in the day with Dustin. And often at that point, it was him and I in the studio, like pretty much, you know, all the time, every weekend or whatnot. And it was really just learning that I guess that somebody else was there, I wasn't, and I was holding them up. And what it really needed to boil down to for me was that it was like I wasn't treating their time as valuable as my own. And it took that kind of recognition that it was like, I'm not respecting that person's time or treating them as an equal. That's when it clicked for me. And then I started being like way more conscious about time, like in general, or like honoring a meeting or something along those lines. In this case, it was like, because the sun's going down, I was trying to rig up a little light for this. And I was also trying to rig up a microphone to make sure that I had decent like audio quality. So I,
Well, we do want you to look and sound pretty. So, I mean, it's important. Right?
You look and sound pretty.
Well, I mean, look at this T-shirt. It's such a sexy shirt. I mean, it's got this really nice logo on it.
You know,
you can. Well, no, I'm trying to avoid my nipples. You know the deal with my nipples. The audience doesn't need to know the deal with my nipples, but so.
Well, I just wish I could grab one here. This is like air grab.
Oh. Damn, no, stop. I need to concentrate. So this is kind of fun. Like, this will probably be one that we'll probably have to take a break and you know, do the little pee break or something in the middle, because I can only last about an hour. I don't know how much time you've got, but I figured we could probably do 10 or 12 of these before I got everything out of you that I really wanted to. We'll try and get it all out. But we also have this fucking nonsense in our world going on right now, you know, particularly in our country. But before we get to that, you know, I've known, this is Leonard Francis Farmer III. I have known Lenny for a very fucking long time. He is my best friend. I got married once, and this was the best man at my wedding. As much of a clusterfuck as all that was, right? What would have been, I think I was like 21 when we met, something like that. Leonard here needed a singer for a band, and I was a singer, and a mutual friend connected us. And the rest is kind of a long, convoluted history. And we've had many a life experience together, let's put it that way, including, you know, 10 years of pouring our heart and soul into a mutual collective project with a few other gentlemen that we call the Mind Site. And other than that, Lenny has also,
for now, you know,
rest in peace for now. Yes. I mean, we skipped 2020, but
I know, I thought about that literally yesterday, man. Like, I was like, because I was going, you know, a lot of time I'm trying to sleep. I'm going through like ideas, records and things. And I was thinking about them. I was like, shit, 2020 passed. I guess that concept album didn't Didn't happen.
Guess not. I mean, we could put it out whenever, and then because 2020 was such a fucking crazy year, I mean, we really could put it out in 2040 and nobody would notice. But Lenny has also been a part of Unraveling with his younger brother Shane Farmer and myself, and Lenny is the front man of his very own band here called Francis Farmer. So that's who this guy is. I mean, he's more than just a pretty face. He's also a very talented motherfucker, and kind of clever as well in some ways. So,
well, I don't know about that last one anyway. Hey,
so let's start with the origin story.
Everybody. Firstly, thank you very much for that lovely introduction and recap of everything. I didn't know how our little origin story would come about through this. Quickly, audio wise, does it sound okay? I rigged up just a 57 right here that's kind of like beep, 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 but I don't know if it sounds good, if it sounds like shit, if you're getting any echo, because I'm listening through my speakers. So I just wanted to like call that to attention before moving too far forward.
I don't hear any echo, but I don't know that I would be able to hear it. Do you hear an echo?
No.
All right, then I think we're all right.
You never know, right? Like, especially because, we're across the pond from each other, right? So here, good one. Hello.
Hi.
Wow.
I think we're okay.
Okay,
well,
great.
Then let's start with the Leonard Francis Farmer III origin story. I like to call them the superhuman origin stories. So why don't you tell everyone? I mean, I know it, but the other people listening probably don't. So fill them in a bit.
Sorry, like my origin?
Yeah, like tell them all about you. You know, you were born.
Yeah. I mean, it started as this fantastic voyage. From the testicles of Leonard Farmer II, at which point traveled into the vagina, down, fallopian tubes, all that kind of stuff, met the egg of my mother, Cynthia Ridpath, and some kind of, really magical thing happened right there, like a union of genetics. And 9 months later I was born, and 9 years later, this is the mess we see now. Origin, that's interesting. Okay. So let me I'm going to start with the other side of us here too, because I was born in Toronto, actually. I'm going to retract all that. I'm going to back up, because if I go chronologically here, I'll eventually get to us meeting and then to the present. So, born in Toronto, raised in, there till I was like 4 or 5. Then off to Gravenhurst. That's where Shane and I met. That was where my mother was from. Grew up from 5 to like 14-ish there, back down to Brampton, where my dad lived, and then back to Gravenhurst, then to Montreal when I was about 19. This was after we met, shortly after we met, and then back to Gravenhurst very briefly, a little bit in Minden, Haliburton area, then down to Aurelia, then Brampton, then Toronto for a good chunk of years, and now presently in Germany. So a little bit of moving around. I mean, shit, how many details do we really want, right?
All of them. I mean, people want to know, what formed Leonard Francis Farmer III. I love saying your name in whole. I wrote you down as Larry. A little shout out to your brother, but I've gotten
Larry for a while, so it's good. And what's really funny, actually, in Germany, Larry is like a generic name that they throw around for, like, just in every, like, I guess in English we might say a Tom, Dick, and Harry or something like that. So, like, yeah, I thought that was kind of fun.
So, I mean, you come from, 2 different parents who had kind of a very different view for where, they would have liked for you to end up. That's one thing that, I remember, especially when we first kind of met, you kind of had the father's influence who kind of wanted to push you towards maybe something that the Lenny I know doesn't necessarily fall into. Well, the Lenny I know was very much into pursuing art, pursuing, his passion. And your mother was obviously very supportive of that. But I can remember at first aren't you going to go to school, be a lawyer?
Yeah. So, okay, to fill that one in. Yeah, my dad's side of the family is very business oriented, very focused on education. I was actually from that side raised Catholic. My mom's side, they've also been successful in their own right and educated in their own ways, but less so like in a formal school sense. And my mom, is also spiritual, but in a different way, probably closer to what I lean towards. Very heart-centered person. She passed away about 10, 11 years ago now. So honorable mention to Cinnabon, Yeah, they're very different. And the interesting thing is, growing up, I butted heads a lot with my dad, like a lot. Him and I would sometimes, when I was a teenager, we'd sometimes go like months without talking. It just that could be rough sometimes. Him and I since get along like considerably better. We butt heads every now and then, and still, but like not nearly as much. And I think there's just like a lot more mutual respect. The interesting thing was growing up, my dad was, he can be very intimidating, and he likes things his way. Like he really likes it to be done his way, and everything in his sphere, he wants to make sure it's, running his way, if you will. And I think from the time I was a little kid, like I just don't like people trying to control me, just doesn't work. Like I don't like it. I'm sure it's like a triggering thing from like back then, but still him and I, like I said, even as a child, really butted heads. And I was really one of the few people in his surroundings that like would stand up to him, like my brothers and my stepsister and stuff. Not really the same way. And when it came to like, not going to school after a life of, I actually really thought for a long time I wanted to be a lawyer. And actually I was going to do like a concurrent degree at Richard Ivey in Western is the name of the school. It's in London, Ontario. And, around the time I was about 17, 18, and I'd been playing guitar since I was like 14. At that point, I was really getting into like writing songs and stuff. And they were keeping me up at night, like I wouldn't be able to fall asleep until, 2, 3 a.m. and then wake up at like 8 a.m. and just look like a mess going to school or whatever. And then at that point, I decided, I was like, hey, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I should follow this path, like listen to my heart, listen to my, trust in myself. That caused a big conflict between my dad and I, because now I am, I'm gonna call it, I'm 18, 19-ish at this point, and I am not going to school to be a lawyer and instead being a musician, which clearly from a financial standpoint, at least can be tricky. So, I think my dad wanting the path that he knew would be kind of like a secure path for me. I think that would be probably where he's coming from, just like looking out for what he feels are my best interests and being financially successful, all that kind of stuff. But simultaneously, I think once again, being a person who went for my own path, I think this is part of the mutual respect that my dad and I have for each other. Like I know there's a certain respect that he has for me. I think because it doesn't matter how hard ass he was with me, I always kind of did my own thing and went my own way. And I think really, so after Aurelia and when I lived there in Aurelia, this is my late 20s, I was, my mom was living abroad. I had basically I was renting out her house. I was renting rooms to like Brian and Dustin, two other buddies from the mine site, which was the band Leonard and I were in. Leonard. Shane. And so after that, you know, I told my mom, I was like, okay, I can't run your house anymore here. Like I want out of that. I went and actually lived at my dad's house briefly before going to Toronto. And at that point we were working on Mindsight Incarnate. We were working on the first Unraveling record. And then I was working on the first Francis Farmer record, which was actually totally different than the way it sounds now, more of an acoustic album. So at that point, between those three records, I was literally sitting at my computer and working from like morning to night, like no joke, on average, like I think 8 hours would be a very light day. And I would say on average, it was probably more like, call it 10 to 16 certain days, you know, when we'd be downtown at the studio, maybe 18, 20 hours. So like on average for about that period of time, I think I had like at least a year to 2 year period where I was literally working on those three records. Give or take 10 to 18 hours a day. And I would say 6 or 7 days a week. And at that point, I think my dad, I think he just got a lot more sense of how hard I actually work at what I'm doing. And it's not just like this fucking flighty, you know, oh, he's being a musician, all he's doing is like partying or doing something like that. I think it was like literally seeing like with his own eyes how hard I go at it. That really, I think that really changed the way he looked at what I did with music, I think. Oh, I like, at least that's my perception of it. Because he's obviously like very, very hardworking person, like very, very hardworking, you know, full-time job, kids, paying for basically 2 houses. And if you include like child support and stuff, and going to night school, gets his real estate license while doing all that kind of stuff, running multiple other businesses, apartment buildings, things like that. So he's like, you know, I think he really respects, you know, tenacity, determination, and that kind of like that work ethic, if you will. So, not to say my mom was a hard worker either. Like I shouldn't. Hopefully, it doesn't. That's not the case.
Now, different characters both had that drive, though, and you know, me knowing you and knowing both of your parents, I can see, you know, the kind of equal parts that you took there and the choices you made along the way, so to speak, in terms of you know, what elements of those two influences you were going to embrace and which ones you felt were just kind of not for you.
Yeah, and you know, interestingly, I think for most of my life, I embraced a lot more of my mother's ways of being. And it took me till I was a little bit older to kind of understand my dad a little bit more, and to really like, for the first long time, I really threw out, like, I felt like he cared so much about money, and it was like that didn't resonate with me, because I guess maybe at a, you know, core level, you kind of know that people and those things ultimately matter more. You know, at this point, I would just recognize the money is just a different form of energy, and it's a tool for freedom. You know, like the more money you have, the more free time you can have, effectively, the more choice you have. So I see it very differently now, but I now recognize that, because originally I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's to my detriment. You know, to be fair, like, had I concentrated a lot harder on money and learning money and actually like giving it a respect, not seeing it negatively, because I think that's the issue, is a lot of people see it with this negative connotation rather than just seeing it as kind of this neutral object or a form of energy, and how you interact with it is really like, you know, that's what creates that, you know, that success or whatnot. So monetary success. So like now that I'm older, I really can see a lot more of those lessons that he was trying to teach me. And, you know, I wish in a way that I had just like, you know, been able to really separate the way I felt about him emotionally in those periods versus the actual wisdom of the messages he was giving me. Because I would have learned a shitload more much sooner and applied a lot of it way sooner. So, yeah.
Well, you've had quite the evolution, or you brought up the tenacity, even myself, as well as I know you, I was pretty impressed to see the way you got behind Francis Farmer, because to be honest, our experience with, the Mind Site was one of those things that could have broken a person, definitely could have broken an artist, right? So
it did break me for a while. Like, let's be real.
yeah, I don't think, it just sounds, it to some people, I'm sure listening to this, they might not understand, like it's a band, but to us it was a family, right? Like, you're like a brother to me, and the other boys are like brothers to me. And I joke on this podcast often about it being kind of like having 4 other girlfriends, but
I say that shit all the time, man. Like,
it's deep like that, and the relationships that we had, and the struggle that we all kind of collectively went through to make all of that happen. I mean, people hear the album, they're like, oh, this is cool, but they don't see the fact that how long did we spend, all kind of living at your mom's place there in Rama, in that garage that we built into a studio, for hours and hours. Like, I can remember Ryan coming in after 36 hours of sitting like this and just looking like a fucking zombie or a dead person walking. All of the fights, all of the love, all of the experiences, the fun that we had, all of the trials that we went through, all of that to create this thing. And then you and I would speak about this a lot. We had kind of a vision for what we wanted from it and why we wanted to do it. It's actually on one of the songs, kind of layered in the background there, kind of, we had this idea of being able to influence things and be able to, share thoughts and experience and knowledge with people through that medium. And we had it. It was all there. And then just because of life and the way things go, and interpersonal relationships, everyone's kind of taking different paths, it did kind of slip away from us. And I felt it too, man. It was heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, and I mean, like, you really hit on a lot of key points of, call it the shared experiences, the relationships, all that. And I would say one of the other, really deep fundamental things is like purpose. I feel like since being, call it that 18-year-old with like the epiphany that music is what I wanted to do, that was the conduit for doing that. Everything was poured into that, like everything, like all my thoughts, all my spare energy, all like, to the detriment of relationships with girls and like other women, I guess. Sorry, shouldn't say girls, maybe women. Well, shit, we were in our 20s. I don't know if you call them. Yeah, man, it that was really like truthfully just like devastating at the time. And like, I know for me personally, my mom had passed away like a year before that. Mind Site broke up. My kind of previous on again off again relationship also ended, all basically in the course of like a year. And then I was fucked up, man. I was like, that's the most a very pivotal learning experience, like that whole period. That was like literally the darkest I've ever known myself. Like, I actually didn't even know that I could get as dark or depressed or down. I think maybe just because all of my life, maybe through support systems, or maybe just I always thought of myself as this like happy-go-lucky and very confident person. And I think when those like foundational items, or people, whatever item for lack of a better term, got kind of like knocked out from under me, man, I'd like to think about like killing yourself or doing stuff like that, and do it regularly is pretty fucked up, man. Like, to think that that's the like where your head is at, And I mean, ultimately all of that really boils down to like all you're seeing at that point is your yourself. And I shouldn't say yourself, I should probably more accurately say it's more like your maybe your identity, your ego, all you're doing is identifying with this kind of version or this kind of story of yourself, and like a woe is me type thing, right? It's when you get that dark and depressed, it's I would argue it's fairly selfish, because all you're doing is thinking about you. You're not really considering the outer world, or the inner world, I guess you could say that as well. So yeah, man, that really fucked me up, man. And it took me a really other relationship that I went really balls deep into and lost myself in, and then took coming out of all that and to really start rebuilding the foundation to find the drive again. Because, like, to be fair, man, like, I didn't have the drive. I didn't. I mean, I still wrote some songs. I still played guitar. Like, that was the outlet. That was the only thing that, like, would basically, those are the only bright spots. You know what I mean? Like, writing the songs is the only thing keeping you sane at that point. Like, literally, like, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, man. But I didn't have the drive or the will to really do anything. And, like, I think when you're going at arts and music and all that, it's you need to have thick skin, and you need to be driving, man. No one else is your boss, right? Like, you're your boss, and if nothing's happening, it's because you didn't fucking do it. So, But yeah, man, definitely that was a huge loss. That was a really, really, really huge loss. Not only, obviously hanging out with all you guys all the time, but that sense of purpose and everything. Big time loss, man. But here we are. We get ourselves back on our feet. I learned a lot about the mind, like the sense of self, and psychology tools to, like, make yourself mentally stronger again, rebuild, and, like, things that have since shaped me, like, in a lot of ways. So, I mean, you get the shit kicked out of you. You need to learn how to build yourself back up.
During that time, you also made a lot of kind of life changes. Like, I know that you kind of started focusing a lot more, not that you were ever an unhealthy person, but, like, you started focusing a lot more on your, like, physical health, the diet, vitamins, supplementing, stuff like that. Meditation was always, something that I know you explored. Obviously, we have some experiences in that realm that we could talk about sometime, but maybe we kind of talk about the life changes that you started making to get yourself out of that as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was actually a really deep dive into like the mental, the psyche, I think through that process, I just dove pretty hard into learning from a lot of different people. Like, and now when I say a lot of mental tools, these are a lot of the things that I kind of incorporate now into, like, fundamentals and advice that I would share for people to try and help them get through things. So music's always been that, like, from the time back when I was like 15, that's like the best therapy that I've ever had or ever known and experienced. And, I can't say enough about that. And learning really simple things, like taking stock of what you're thankful for, like on a daily basis. Like, literally anytime you're feeling dark or out of it, if you can just sit there and think, like, what am I thankful for? That can, like, you literally can't feel depressed at the same time as feeling thankful. If you don't think you got anything to be thankful for, you're super fucking wrong. Flat out. Because, like, maybe you don't have all these things that I'm about to name, but, like, something as simple as, like, eyesight. Okay, so you're going, fair enough. But maybe you can walk. That's good. Okay, maybe you can't walk, but you got eyesight. You can talk. You have ears. You can drink water. You're floating around on this massive rock in the middle of space, and we're somehow living. I mean, I can think of many, many different things. You got a cell phone, you got a computer, you can listen to your favorite music. Point is, there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of things you could be thankful for at any moment. And if you're feeling down and out, I think that's literally probably the single best tool I can know of to do that. So yeah, those that was a big thing, was diving into that, diving into like the understanding a little bit more about the subconscious mind, emotional mind, how basically, you know, from call it 0 to 5, and then you're basically like a wide open door taking in everything that's thrown at you, which is why we spend so much of our lives, you know, trying to undo the conditioning that we received, for better or worse. So learn a lot about that. And then some really fundamental things like, I took some other courses and stuff too, and really coming to be aware that nothing in and of itself really has an exact meaning, or very few things anyway. You know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say basically nothing. And at every single moment, you are making up a dialogue in your mind about whatever it is that you're interacting with in your outer world. And at every single moment, you literally have the ability to change the story that you're telling yourself about whatever it is that is going on in your world. So I think that kind of fundamental tool. So even if I'm off just being an asshole in my own mind, you know, at least at this point I can say, okay, I know I'm being an asshole about this in my mind, and I can change my perspective at any moment. And I think that's, if you got into religion and things in like maybe Christianity or whatnot, you know, I think when they say, like, one of the things when they say created in God's image or whatever, is that you literally have this godlike ability to create your reality based on your perceptions, you know? So I think those were a lot of the fundamental things. Then you could say on physical body health, you know, I learned a lot more about health. Actually, that started back when my mom had cancer and everything. I really started diving deep into, you know, lifestyle and how it related to diseases like cancer. And then I think I carried forward after that. So those would be a few of the very fundamental shifts. At that time, I had also, like I said, the first Francis Farmer record is it's an acoustic album, which kind of came to be. We were doing Mindsight, which is heavy, hard rock band, and I was also playing a bunch of acoustic shows by myself, you know, to make some money, and to also just there were times when Mindsight wasn't moving fast enough for me, and I wanted to do something that I was like, no one else could hold me back but me. So I was like, I can do that too. So what I also learned, though, you know, making that acoustic record and being away from a band and out of a band, obviously that was my first love and now why I did it. But then I think you also kind of have this stark comparison to like doing acoustic tracks. I'm really just writing rock songs on acoustic guitar. So and playing by yourself is not the same as creating with other people. I can create cool shit on my own. At this point, I can do almost anything by myself, but the other people that you're interacting with, there's a magic there, and I just really had come to appreciate that even more so. It's kind of like you know it, but when it's gone, then you're like, you've got these, you know, points of comparison, counterpoint. So
it makes you appreciate it different. It's funny because looking back on the Mindsight, like there's a lot of regret on my end. This is a conversation we've never had. A lot of regret on my end sometimes about, you know, being kind of, obviously you and I would collaborate a lot, but I think once we kind of got past that point, there was like a wall that I would build where I didn't want to go back and look at things again. I didn't want to rework them. I didn't want to second guess them. I was like, no, this is kind of what it is. And I can see the ways in which I was difficult in that sense, even working with your brother on Unraveling, specifically the second Unraveling. I identified a lot of that about myself. And it seems kind of simple in the context of making music with someone, but I realized that was actually a bigger part of a mistake I was making in my life in a lot of different types of relationships, where I was putting up a wall in a certain way. And the music making, the relationships with you know, yourself and the other boys in the Mindsight, as well as say your brother and, you know, the other boys in the Mindsight, which is kind of funny, but that really kind of once it was kind of done and I was away from it for a while, I did kind of look back at it of being like all of these wasted opportunities for collaboration that kind of now I wish I had, because it's the same type of thing. Like I went off, did my own thing for a while, and it's great. You can have success. It feels good. You, like you said, nobody's holding you back. The only person you can blame is yourself. All of that stuff is useful. But once I reached a point, I was kind of like, man, I miss that. I miss having a group that works together. I miss having that collaboration with these other people, sharing energy currency in that way with these other people. And for fuck's sakes, I wish I had have appreciated it while I had it, if you know what I mean. But I guess that's kind of a growing up and experiencing and moving on thing. But yeah, so I kind of feel you in that way.
Oh, totally, man. You hit on like a lot of, interesting growth topics, right? Like it takes a lot to, it's basically like you got to remove your attachment and ego on things to be able to be kind of humble enough to just be like, okay, maybe these other people are trying to highlight that they've got my best interests at heart. I think, maybe they're trying to highlight something here for me that could be improved, and maybe not, because I mean, music is 1,000 shades of gray, right? But yeah, man, to hit it back to, it certainly presents that counterpoint. And, duality was a massive theme in the music that we wrote, and it's a massive theme for me in Francis Farmer as well. And it's like, it's funny because I didn't really think about it too much, but, in trying to learn what my own brand is or whatnot for Francis Farmer, I kind of came across that like almost every song in some way, shape, or form I'm doing, playing dark versus light, negative versus, like, one verse is positive, one verse is negative. I'm constantly flipping majors and minors, which is like what I like. And it's funny because like you and I used to do that all the time, kind of representing different characters in songwriting, and all, a lot of them didn't even get out there in the world, but that was something that we constantly did. And I think it's exactly what we're talking about. It's the counterpoint. Like, you don't know light without dark. You don't know dark without light, kind of thing, So, yeah.
Yeah, I can say like, you changed my life in a great way because of our relationship in that way. Because like, going back to when I met you, I was the singer, I was the front man. This was me. I was going to write the lyrics. I was going to create the theme. When we met, obviously it grew into it, but I had to come to terms with, the idea of true partnership and being able to like, have that, you and I had that kind of relationship where we could be that kind of vulnerable with each other and really kind of like, if something was pissing you off or something you were really excited about, or vice versa, to be able to have the freedom to say that to each other, and the other person kind of get it. And the way we did kind of end up, forming that symbiosis in the way we wrote lyrics and the way that the songs all came out was, life-changing for me, because I didn't think that I was capable of it. It was like, it showed me another aspect of myself. And when you brought up the duality thing, I mean, I think that's probably why it works, is because you and I both have that very full capability of seeing the light and the dark in just about everything we come across, right? And we're very kind of similar in that way. And yeah, it's the same thing for me. It comes through in everything that I do. I'm always like, playing the devil's advocate, so to speak, on one side, and kind of really passionately speaking out of the other side. And some people can't really tell which side I'm on, right? It's just because I do see the kind of bird's eye view of everything and want to express the light and the dark within it.
Sure. Yeah, man. I think you really hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. And I guess I would pass the torch back to you in the sense that you drastically changed many, many things, not only in my life, but my songwriting. So I think, yeah, firstly, to develop that mutual respect, and be able to just like, I don't know, like maybe I had an idea, and then it's just like, and you would then have an idea. I'm like, oh shit, man, that's a better idea, and I think just it was so cool in a sense that, very often the parts that I would write and gravitate towards were the opposite of what you would gravitate towards. And then you would want to write on these parts, I'd want to write on these parts. And it started to just always work itself out pretty naturally without us even having to discuss things, but being able to throw lyrical ideas back and forth and like help each other refine lyrics and parts. You basically, I learned from you the importance or the value of lyrics, because I think previously, I'd kind of come from this, I guess more of a Kurt Cobain school of thought, where it was often kind of seemingly random. I mean, his writing, I think, got better by in utero, like his lyric writing. I think there's more depth there than he would lead you to believe. But it came from that kind of random, like, doesn't matter what you say, it's more about the melody kind of philosophy. And to me, melody, super important, obviously. But I definitely learned about the importance of lyrics with you and carried that forward since. So now for me, like, lyrics that I like really matter. I spend a lot of time like thinking about my lyrics and whatever that happens to be. I mean, melody first, and sometimes I don't even understand why I'm saying particular words if they sound cool, but they eventually get refined into something a lot more than that. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight was that I feel like, based on where we were kind of coming from as people, I feel like you were a little more in the darkness at that point, like, or a lot more okay with like really darkish things that for me were like, I guess let's, I don't know how I would describe it, but let's say that Lenny's like a prude or something like that, and you're like, nah, sex is awesome. You should be cool with all that kind of stuff, like whatever that, I'm trying to draw an analogy here. But kind of like, I feel like we were coming from these opposite sort of sides, where I was more happy and like more happy-ish, I guess you'd say, maybe more bubbly, I don't know, something along those lines. And I feel like you were kind of coming from that darker angle. And I think there was a lot of really good that came from that too. Because I think as let's say me being on the light, you're forced to like face some darkness and some fears and some things like that are really, really important. Look, I really think the magic is actually kind of dancing that line between the two of them, right? Like, if you're really living at your edge within yourself. And then I think on the flip side, I'm kind of the guy like probably giving you some like, other love and showing you more of the light side that I think is like, so I think there was a lot of mutual benefit for us in terms of like our own personal development, I would say as well.
Most definitely. I wanted to bring that up as well. Before you, I didn't there was a reason why I was in the dark, right? Like my life experiences up to that point were kind of, what they were, right? So I never had, any type of sense of community, any type of sense of family. Like, even the idea of having best friends was kind of a weird concept to me, just because of the types of relationships I had been involved with up until the time we met, and even preceding. But, you kind of gave me that, you gave me that. I had younger brothers, but my relationship with my younger brothers was, especially at that time, a lot more like a father and son versus two brothers, right? Mm-hmm. So you were kind of like a brother, and then your brothers became brothers, and I got adopted by your mom, right? Like, which was a big thing because I got mommy issues, right? And I got adopted by your mom. She became one of my many moms, and the community as well, because that was the other thing. At the time, you had a community of amazing people around you, amazing friends. Like, I've had a few of them on this podcast already that would come from that kind of crowd. I had never seen any of that before, so you exposed that all to me, and you held my hand through it as well. Like, I remember, like, I kind of was standoffish about it. I didn't want to be around all that people. You kind of forced me into it. You were like, no, come on. Even though you kind of traumatized me. What was the first time?
I knew this was coming up.
I fucking loved it, man. I bring it up all the time because it was just so good. So picture this. I kind of just set the stage of where I was at. One of the first times I go to hang out with this guy, we're like a bunch of these people I don't know, all this guy's friends.
A bunch of my friends.
And I say something, and he just turns to me and he's like, nobody even likes you. Why don't you just leave?
total sarcasm, just like being a complete asshole. I didn't even think of it from the perspective of like just like a date with them kind of thing. But yeah, just like, you know, a really extreme version of somebody said something that was kind of dumbish, and you're just like, but you know, in good spirits. I didn't mean it that way. And
well, yeah, like everybody laughed. We all had a laugh at it. Nobody was looking at me like, yeah, why don't you just leave? Right? Everybody was cool. And, you know, I've met people through that group of friends of yours that are still my friends to this day, and probably will be for the rest of my life, and a lot of, you know, beautiful people as well. So, you know, thank you for that. But yeah, I think on the other end, you know, I could see it too, how from your side, kind of, not to say that you were sheltered in any way, everybody has, you know, their own shit, but like to not see that kind of extreme before, and then kind of be presented with it, but at a, you know, I think, you know, character wise, vice versa, because I mean, there's a lot of people who, unlike, had a, let's say, better upbringing than I did, who were very closed off to people like me at that time. The fact that you kind of embraced all of that darkness that came along with being my friend was, you know, kudos to you for that. And like, it was part of the reason why it worked.
yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I'm obviously very, very happy to. And I was going to say, you know, you might have said that I did that, but you created it just as much as I created it, right? So, you know, I think that's, yeah, man. Really funny to like go back and think about, you know, that stuff. And even like, let's go one further into the origin here. So I'm in my first band in high school, and the singer in the band, that was my buddy West.
Leonard West, he watches some.
Anyway, he dropped out of being in the band. At that point, I was always a guitar player first, but I'd kind of started to learn how to sing a little bit, and I'd been encouraged from a few people, like at these talent shows and things like that, to, like in high school or whatever, to maybe try singing in a band. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can do this. Now the issue was though, we couldn't find a guitar. Like I didn't know how to sing and play. I was just really uncomfortable. And actually I just told myself I couldn't really sing and play for a lot of years. And I couldn't find anyone to replace me on guitar. And we had this Battle of the Bands thing that was coming up, and we really wanted to play. And so the tryout riff is kind of funny. Anytime I was trying out a guitar player, I would see, could they play Lateralis by Tool, that kind of main rocker. Because basically with that one, there's a number of like sort of rhythm techniques, but more about it was kind of like the math of it. Like it takes a little bit to wrap your head around that and those kind of time signatures. So for me, if it's like a guitar player couldn't keep up with that, I was like, okay, this guy can't do it. And you're in small towns. There's no one who can, there's only so many people who play guitar that are like roughly in, you know, your age bracket, into the same music, maybe. So I think, so I'm going to keep going with this one. So we've been searching for a little bit. We couldn't find anyone, which was putting a fucking kibosh on me being the singer in the band. And so I'm going into these late night, I think it was the Beckers at the time. Was it called Beckers at that point?
It might have been. I'm pretty sure it had switched over to Max by that point.
Was it Max? Okay, so Shane worked overnight at the convenience store. He did this in multiple convenience stores in this little small town. So I remember going in there. You know, I'd seen him a couple times at this point because I'm up late. He's in there late. And so I think I was buying a guitar magazine. I think actually that had some Tool or something in the guitar magazine. So we started.
It was Lateralis, yeah.
And was it?
Yeah, it was Lateralis, yeah.
Oh shit, okay, there you go, perfect. So I was buying that guitar magazine, and I think I probably just said, you know, I'm buying it because of Tool or whatever. And so we started talking about it at that point, and talking about more music and all that. And then, you know, Shaynard here pulls out, goes into his knapsack and pulls out like 2 or 3 notebooks filled with lyrics. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like I've written like maybe a handful of songs, and my lyrics at that point were garbage. So seeing that, I was like, holy shit, man, this guy's really into it. So we started talking more, and then basically I think it was like 5 days before that Battle of the Bands, Leonard came out and we're like, hey man, come come sing for us here, learn these songs. And yeah, we did Lateralis by Tool, and that was quite the experience. Kudos to fucking Adam DeCare, man. That guy was like a punk drummer and learned how to drum that entire song. He'd only been drumming for like 2 years or 3 years and learned how to play that song. Like playing something by Danny Carey in 2 or 3 years. And he went through and like memorized the entire track, air drumming in his car, went Barbara, and it's like, holy shit, man. That was incredible. And that first jam was actually pretty fucking solid, man, when he came out. I remember we were all like, wow, that just happened. Cool.
Yeah, and it was funny because there was what I remember from it more than anything was I had to learn Toxicity, which I didn't know, Toxicity by System. And there was an experience with that ended up coming up between you and I way later, which was that when we went to play it, you guys had just played whatever Lateralist, but you were in like standard tuning, and obviously Toxicity is in C. Yeah. And so I just remember Ryan's mom coming down the stairs being like, what the fuck are you doing to this poor guy? You need to tune the guitars properly. It was kind of funny that she recognized from upstairs.
She's a vocal teacher.
Exactly. But she came down, she saved my ass because I was in this place. It was more or less an audition at that point, right? And here I am like knowing that I'm like way off on this song, no idea why. I'm like, I've learned this, I've got the muscle memory, like I can sing this fucking song, why can't I do it? And then she came down and pointed out that we weren't tuned properly. We dropped it, and then we killed the song, which was pretty funny because flash forward many years later when we were getting ready for our first show. Remember, we were getting ready for that show, opening for the Salads at that wakeboarding festival.
Right? Sure.
And it was just after Ryan had got back from playing guitar for Fifi, and he was kind of in a place where he really wanted us to be very professional. And we decided to have a live show kind of rehearsal at your place with a bunch of your friends. Like we basically had a party, right? Like, and invited people out, and we played that party. But we didn't tune our guitars in between songs. So there was times where, because you and I can't hear ourselves, and we're relying purely on muscle memory, where we were so off that Ryan freaked out, if you remember that. And he made us both go woodshed for the day, like go in and like ourselves up, sing and play. And then we ended up finding out that it was because we hadn't been tuning the way that the songs were done. So it was kind of funny that that exact same thing came up for both of us later.
Yeah, man. And here I want to highlight something because you made a couple of Ryan references. I'm just going to delineate really quickly because there's 2 Ryans. At that point, the bass player in the first high school band was named Ryan St. Pierre. And we were at his place with his mother, who was the vocal coach. Fast forward, at that very Battle of the Bands that we were practicing for, that Shana was doing the audition for, we met this other drummer who ended up being one of our best friends, my best friend, his best friend, and was the drummer in Mindsight for many years, Ryan Chalmers. And we met also at that very kind of, it's so funny, man. When you reflect on that shit and you're just kind of like, wow, was that ever like a pivotal period of a few days or week? When you think of the way like the course of your life has gone, and like meeting certain people and how it's like that literally affects the course of your life moving forward. It's crazy that's like we met that week and met Ryan Chalmers, like 2 of my best buddies and the future bandmates, which then led to Dustin as well. And like just just wild to think of, moving to Toronto, so many different shows, so many different things, just crazy. So like Ryan at that show, I remember walking in and he was playing with these guys, and they were from Haliburton, Minden area, Northern Ontario. And he was the drummer in a Slipknot tribute band. I just remember walking in and being like, it was the first time I'd ever heard a drummer that I was just like, felt like I could sit there and listen to drums. Like that was it. I was just like, holy fuck, this guy is unreal. And then, shortly thereafter, we started traveling up to Haliburton to write songs with Mr. Chalmers, and the rest is history.
Funny how that actually all went, because if you think about, some of even the cello connection came from that same day, right?
Yeah.
Because she and our bass player in Spill the Sky, which was that first band, still a sick name, by the way.
And then our future bass player does this.
Yeah, right. And it was kind of funny because she had met Ryan there, and then we kind of knew her through that. And she already knew Ryan Chalmers, the drummer, and then later on when we meet Dustin, because she's dating Dustin, right? It's so all of that, you're right, it all happened like really within a week, right? Because like you and I met, it was only a few days later that like I did that audition, we did that. We really only had 2 or 3 days between the audition and the actual show, and then we met Ryan and Chella and everything at the show, Ryan Chalmers and Chella at the show. And and then I think it was only like 3 days after that before you and I were in a car driving from Gravenhurst to Minden to go jam with Ryan. And I'll never forget even that first day, because it was like, I'm sitting there, the only one without an instrument. You and him start jamming, and it's just like immediately we start working on something you and I had already previously worked on. So, and just seeing how quickly that all came together. And if you think about it, I mean, it really was the three of us. Right from there, right? And or to be even more real, it was like you and him working on one side of it, you and I working on the other side of it, and then eventually all of us coming together. Really kind of wild to see how that all played out. And and one more thing on the Ryan on my arm is neither of those two Ryans. This is actually my kids. Too many Ryans. It's like I think I have 3 podcasts with Marks now. Like too many Ryans, too many Marks. But and then the amount of experiences we had, even just with the travel to go to Halliburton and back all the time, or like everything that was going on, all the singing in your car, if you remember all of that. Even being
dude, that's where I learned how to scream and shit. That was from you. I was like, I didn't really know about that before, or like how I really belt it out like that, or just kind of like unleash. That was it was all those. We used to go and practice singing in the car all the time. That was like, we must have looked uber gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but me and this guy would be in cars late at night, parked in these random places. And then, a couple times with police coming and things like that, small town, they had nothing to do. And we probably should have just said that we were gay or something, you know what I mean? And then they probably would have just like left us alone.
Maybe. I mean, they probably still would have got mad that we were stealing the arena's electricity.
Yeah, that was really cool.
They definitely would have still got mad about that bomb, but this is a whole other story. I'll tell it for the people listening. So we were doing exactly what we were talking about. Lenny and Shane's younger brother Andrew had just bought this beautiful glass bong, and for whatever reason Lenny brought it out with us, and we decided to get out of the car and smoke a bong because we couldn't smoke it in the car. And for whatever reason, I had this intuition, like, just don't bring that back in the car. Leave it underneath the back bumper.
Yeah, behind that.
Right? So I got Lenny to leave it underneath the back bumper of the car. At the time, we have an extension cord running out of his car into an arena outdoor outlet. We're stealing their electricity to run this little digital recorder.
A little digital recorder. We were putting
So we have this little digital recorder, and we're trying to like record demo vocals in his car. And we had just left the bong out there, and within a few minutes of us
on your side, I think you just set it there.
Yeah. Well, it was underneath it was just underneath the back bumper.
Yeah, the back tire. Yeah.
And then, within 5 minutes of us getting back in the car after using said bong, the police show up. And so the cop comes and he sees the extension cord and is obviously not impressed, and goes to the back where we have the extension cord plugged in and sees the bong. And like he asks us, well, what about the bong? And Lenny just froze. And
dude, I was like fucking deer in the headlights at this point. Shane's experience with police officers and or understanding of the law or whatever it was at the time, like I was fucking deer in the headlights. So Shane gets all the credit here. I just shut my fucking mouth.
So they've got us, they tell us to put our hands on the dashboard. We've got our hands on the dashboard. We're doing that type of thing. And he's like, well, what about the bong back here? And I'm like, what bong? We don't have a bong. What are you talking about? He's like, oh, so you're going to play stupid. I'm like, I'm not playing stupid, officer. I don't have a bong. I know what a bong is. I don't have one with me. And all you hear is smash. He steps on the bong, shatters it everywhere. And my response to that noise was, holy fucking shit, there was actually a bong back there. Can I get out and see it? And that was enough to get him to leave us alone. He just told us to stop stealing the electricity and went off about his day and left us on ours. But that was a fun one.
Yeah, man, you aced that test.
And then another, like, you know, crazy stupid experiences. We decided a good friend of us lent us his house up in Minden, Ontario to do some recording in. And so Lenny and I pack everything up and we go and we set up in this house. And I mean, it was kind of creepy when we first got there, and
creepy, man. I can tell you, even like before that, Ryan Chalmers and I were doing a bunch of work in that house, and it was, I don't know, man. It was fucking creepy the whole time.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a creepy vibe. There's some weird things. You remember that hole in the basement that like pretty much looked like a dungeon? Yes. Like it was like somebody had literally cut a square of the concrete out of the foundation of the basement of the house, dug a giant hole underneath it, and there was just this little room down there that you can only speculate as to what that room actually got used for.
A little cubby under the stairs that had its own door, had a little mini light in it, and then literally, I think on the inside had like, at this point, it was kind of like rotted out drywall that I don't know if that was still there, but there was like little kid fucking writing and stuff on it. And like, yeah, remember I was like, yeah, the place was fucking creepy the whole time. That was, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we set up to record. One thing I remember is the window just outside the room that we were actually sitting in had the whole Amityville horror thing going on with the flies. You remember the flies that were just pouring out of that window? It was like, where are these fucking things coming from?
I can't forget about that, but yes, when you said it, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, and then we had very much EVP experience while trying to record, where there was these voices coming through our microphones. Wasn't me, it wasn't you, right? Like
actually recorded. Recorded. Yeah. I'd have to go dig that up. That was when we were working on Posing Nightmares. And I think we were working on Breathing Skywards and Posing Nightmares. I think that particular time from our first.
It was definitely Breathing Skywards because the whole feed the ass. There's a lyric in the song where I'm supposed to say feel the past, and for whatever reason what came out of my mouth while recording was feed the ass, and I'm in a vocal booth. It comes out of my mouth. I'm having the thought, did I just say that? Did I actually just say that? Did the microphone hear me say that? Did Lenny hear me say that? And as I turn to Lenny has fallen off of his chair and is on the floor rolling around laughing. Because like I just like fully screamed, feed the ass. Completely randomly. But going back to the weirdness, we finally finish up for the night. We ended up kind of giving up because like we were just like, what we don't even know what's going on. Let's just go to sleep. While we're both trying to sleep, and this ended up becoming a lyric in the song, we both had this sensation of someone screaming in our face to wake up. Like almost like someone, like I felt like it was someone coming like right into my face and just like, wake up, or almost shaking me. Yeah, and then like the little whispers, and it wouldn't stop. And like I was dealing with it and he was dealing with it. Neither one of us were saying anything. And then eventually it got to the point where we both had to say something. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like we survived the night, thankfully, right? But we definitely had to leave the next day.
Yeah, man, I just got obviously the rest. Yeah, man, that was fucking trippy. Yeah. I remember so I don't know, at this point if we had we talked about it. I remember for me, it was like I remember laying there because we were laying on the floor. We had mattresses or whatever set up in the living room there in Minden. Pretty fucking cold still from what I remember. And laying down. And I remember I was like just starting to fall asleep. And then it was like right in my ear kind of thing. And I was just like, like scared shitless. Where the fuck did that come from? Oh man, yeah, that place was a fucking trip, bro.
And I don't remember how far into the future it was, but then we were all together. We had just finished a mixing day, and we're in the house that we used for our recording of the first My Sight record. Lenny's mom's house had a hot tub room with a hot tub. So all the boys are like, relaxing in the hot tub at the end of the day. And we end up randomly bringing up that house because we had all kind of had like experiences with it. And we're sitting there talking about this house. And then the next morning, Ryan, our drummer, gets a call from the owner of the house to let us know that the house fucking burnt down. Literally while we were having the conversation about the house.
Yeah, man, I went back there to because like the plan was that Ryan and I were we fixed that house up. It was fucking like disgusting, gross place. We cleaned it up. Ryan did more than I did and put in a lot of work, fixed it up, made it look pretty reasonable. And we were getting ready to, more or less move in there. At that point, Ryan gets his Fifi gig. So I still had some of like my things up there. And I remember somehow my stuff had moved to like this upper bedroom and it's weird because like the stairs were like half burnt. So half the staircase was there and you could get up to it. The rest of the house is like fucked. And I went to get my stuff and it was just as creepy then, and I remember having this distinct feeling of someone would be like, help me, like something like help me kind of thing, something to do with the house being like, that was, I'm getting goosebumps again. It was that was a weird fucking place, man. So I guess I'm happy we didn't live there because it was like an electrical fire and the place burned up. So Jesus.
Because that was the plan. We were all gonna, right? You guys were gonna move there, and that was gonna be where the studio ended up.
Yeah, they're gonna build the studio there. That was the plan. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen.
Yeah. Blessings in the skies.
Hindsight 2020.
Hey, so maybe this is a good break point. I need to take a pee.
Likewise. I'm gonna make a coffee as well, so we'll take like 5-10 minutes.
Okay, cool, man. Sounds good.
Cool. We'll be back, people.
Yeah. Padre, you're back.
We're back. So you've been fed the code words. You know about the joy, you know about the lollipop, you know about being sugar-free. We'll co-opt one of our own words for kind of what's going on, call it the gathering, happening in Ottawa. Hopefully this doesn't get us kicked off of YouTube, but I think a lot of what we both want to kind of have a conversation about here today is the current fucking insanity happening in our home country. I have been speaking about it in many ways for, 2 and a bit years now. Right from the beginning of all of this, I kind of saw a path being laid out and, kind of questioned a lot of what we were being told in terms of the joy and whatnot right off the start, because I kind of saw the path as having, ending somewhere. And I was more focused on that potential ending than the joy and everything else. Unfortunately for me and for all Canadians and for most of the world right now, that end is kind of where we're at right now, which is this, free fall into, kind of losing what it meant to be Canadian. right? And I've never been a very, let's call it, patriotic nationalist type person. I really don't give two shits about much of that stuff. I kind of see global community as being a one world government.
Sure.
So that's my own point of view, but I know that you are a little bit different in that you've been like someone who's been proud to be Canadian and been proud of what our country stands for and those type of things. So I can definitely feel your frustration. So let's dive into it. Obviously, what's going on is Canadians are kind of standing up because they're not on board en masse, let's say. I think the number is somewhere around like the 60% of Canadians kind of disagree with the way our government has approached the Joy. And now we have this gathering happening in our capital city of Ottawa, which is a few hours away from me, obviously many miles away from you right now, but close to what we both would call home traditionally. So yeah,
relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah. So how you feeling, my friend?
Well, I guess I'd say thankful that I'm in Germany.
Which is a fucked up statement. Did you ever think in your lifetime you'd ever be thankful you were in Germany due to something like this?
As opposed to Canada?
Right?
I think, I mean, you know what, let's be really specific. Yeah, I mean, sure, I could see myself being thankful for getting to travel to Europe. What I would not have foreseen would be that I would be in such generally heavy disagreement with what's been going on within our home country of Canada, and that I may no longer want to call it a home or have a home there based on what has been going on. And really throughout this pandemic, like, dude, I never saw it coming that within myself I would ever have those thoughts. I just, like, I value relationships and people so much, and I've built many, built and maintained many great relationships. And you being one of my buddies that's there, and my entire family's there. And to literally say, like, I don't think I want much to do with Canada. Like, I'd always imagine myself having a house, or a place in Canada. And even though Nestle, my girlfriend / wife, whatever you want to call it, she's here in Germany, but I always imagined, even within that we would be like, we'd bounce back and forth and have a home in both places. So all that to say that it says a lot to be saying what I'm saying right now about the way things have, been unfolding in Canada. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm fondling a little orange here, preparing it so I can eat it. Blood orange. I don't know, man. For the first time, I throughout this, with Instagram and social media and stuff, like my Instagram's, it's just a band account. I probably wouldn't be on social media if it wasn't for having a band. Facebook, I've kind of entered a few dialogues and tried to, like, mostly just messages of love when I feel like the world needs that, and kind of stood up for a few things, posted a few things here and there on Facebook, but never on Insta. And then recently I just went, obviously the other night, I went on a little mini rant, which is the first and only time I've really ever done anything political on my band channel. But, I felt kind of like, I'm just fucking blown away. I couldn't even believe that was the case. I was like, are people paying attention to what's going on here? So, dude, I saw this other video today in the, I think in Parliament, where, they're discussing things, and some conservative members were speaking to Liberal Party and to Trudeau or whatnot. I don't know, have you seen this?
Probably.
Anyway, he more or less, after the woman makes this, a pretty solid statement about when did, he start abandoning some of the principles. She took a quote from him in like 2015 and just said, at what point did you completely lose sight of this? some I'm paraphrasing and not doing a good job. And he basically suggested that everyone out there is like siding with like Nazis and the Conservative Party members. You gotta pull this video up, man. I couldn't even believe it. And then obviously all the parliament members are like, how are you just saying that we're siding with Nazis here? And a few other expletives or whatnot in it. Other dude from the Conservative Party steps up, and I don't normally listen to much politics or watch these parliamentary things. It's not really my jam. But, when things are happening, such as they are, it's pretty important. So other guy steps up, another person, and just says, like, do you realize what you've just basically said here? And I'm going to provide you the opportunity to apologize for that to everybody here. Our party, your party, everybody within this place. Trudeau tries to stay focused on the, their stance on everything, that it's doing it for Canadians, blah, 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 and totally ignores it. Guy comes back on. He just says, he's lost family in the wars. He's had people that fought for this. He's like, I'm going to give you one more chance to apologize for what you just said and the way you've basically insulted everybody here. Once again, doesn't apologize, tries to stick to things like it's like he's actually doing something that's good for the country. And then it just goes back and forth. And the woman who made the statement previously was, in fact, of Jewish heritage. And so it goes into this slight pissing contest, but the people there were riled up. You listen, they even cut the sound off to the whole parliament room or whatnot. It was pretty wild. I liked Trudeau when he first got in. I actually thought he was okay, I like this guy. I might have even voted for him on the first try. And I definitely did not vote for him this time. Definitely not. And I was not in favor of the way a lot of things were going. I am shocked, man. Shocked at this thing. I can't even, it's so tough for me to wrap my mind around what they're doing and enacting more emergency act shit. It's no longer a fucking emergency. It may have been when there was no data, no science, and you don't know where it's going to lead, right? At this point, with where it's at, with Omicron and everything, this point is pretty much like a cold, the latest variants, which are, oh man, this is a deep diatribe, but it's no longer an emergency. Are some people still at risk? Of course, some people are still at risk. Can a case be made for efficacy of vaccine? Sure, in reducing symptom sets particularly amongst demographics, particularly in the elderly or immunocompromised. I'm not saying there's no benefit to that, and I'm not anti-vax. I'm not, because I think in the instance of say polio or other things where you're taking a pretty much 100% efficacious vaccine, I'm not against that. But in this case, my biggest beef with what's been going on, and I've been opposed to it the whole time, is they're forcing people in Canada down one path, is vaccine, and that's it. Not recognizing natural immunity and data, not allowing for, you just got a COVID test and now you're allowed in somewhere. Vaccine, that's it. And that for me is disgusting. I literally can't, to suggest that a person cannot participate in society, first and foremost, not have autonomy over their own body, not be slightly skeptical when some vaccine is pushed through on an emergency act, when tons of data at this point has also come out about the lack of third-party testing from Pfizer. This is public knowledge at this point. And to still be forcing people down that path and not allowing them to participate in society, firing off nurses and doctors and first responders like your job, you know? It blows my mind, man. And I mean, like, even here, like, so here in Germany, what they're doing, they've gone back and forth, but here they recognize natural immunity, meaning if you have recovered from COVID,
The joy.
you've got that option. You have, sorry, what'd you say?
The joy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my mistake. If you've recovered, vaccination, or so they call it either 2G or 3G. 2G would be that. 3G would be also to if you recently did a test and came back negative, no symptoms. That's logical. That I can get behind. If something is still, we feel like a risk, and you're trying to minimize people in healthcare and all that kind of stuff, I can get behind that, you know, because that makes sense, you know, at least a lot more sense. To just go down one path, it's like, it's so not true. And if you even listen to most modern data, like I was recently listening to an interview with the you know, the head immunologist or whatnot from Israel, and their recent data, you know, he more or less outright says like, a vaccine helps you to reduce symptoms, and particularly symptoms in, you know, call it 50 plus, and then, you know, different demographics. It does not help in the transmission. It's not doing anything for transmission. People that are fully vaccinated, double, triple, quadruple vaccinated, are still passing it to each other. So really at that point, the argument boils down to, you know, when it was first getting rolled out and we were first in it, you know, it was like, oh, we need to do this. It was like being forced on you, like you need to do it to protect everyone else. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But you know, that was the thing. You're noble if you're going and getting a vaccine. Everyone's wearing it like a badge of honor. I personally was still skeptical, and if it wasn't for trying to come back into Canada, I probably still wouldn't have done it yet. I would have waited for 2, 3, 4 years of data. Then I might have done it. You know, like I think that's reasonable. So anyway, badge of honor, do it. And now at this point, it's like, it's just out the window. It's like, that's not even the rationale. So if you're forcing it on people for, you know, protecting your elderly, whatever, okay. You know, I'm not an asshole. You know, I can get behind that if I want to go visit my grandma, if I want to hang out with stuff. At this point, that's just not the reality, and that's not what the data suggests. So to still be pushing that agenda and not acknowledging the wealth of data that exists at this point in science and peer-reviewed studies, I just can't get behind it, man. I think it's gotten absurd. I thought it was absurd when they first did it. It bifurcated our society into two groups. It just
isn't that everything we're trying to avoid? You know what I mean? Like, isn't everything, like you mentioned our leader, isn't that everything that he ran on tried to avoid, right? Wasn't it all about equality? Like, isn't that what like Canada is kind of built on? I mean, don't we have the highest level of diversity for a fucking reason? Don't we have, like, you know, pride months, you know what I mean? Don't we have, you know, all of these different things in Canada that are supposed to be all about inclusive, all about inclusion, and all
We're
about
supposed to be a forward-thinking libertarian country.
Exactly. Democracy. Like we grew up making fun of the United States, you know what I mean? Right? Like, and now it's like the United States has a very big right to kind of be making fun of us, and they're still a mess, you know? So it's, yeah.
I'm stoked to see, like, actually this hitting American news. Like I'm pretty deep into crypto and have been for like the better part of the last year and change. went super hard into it. And even seeing crypto YouTubers bringing up stuff in Canadian politics is like, wow, like if it's all on American channels, American news, all that kind of stuff, and even here, it's like that shit's getting global coverage at this point, and I love that because it makes the idiocy of what is going on right now be like, dude, like, you're supposed to be fucking Canada, bro. Like, democracy.
I don't know if you heard Bill Meyer the other night basically referred to our leader as the big H word, right? Like he's saying like, he sounds just like him, and
Sure.
he does. And this has been something like there's a bunch of people who have been, this has been my experience, is I'm like, this leads to this, and people saying, oh, that's a bit extreme. Right. And then people saying that's a bit extreme. And me being like, okay, it sounds a bit of extreme. But then some time passes and that's where we are. Right. Sure. And then those same people will come back to me and they'll be like, oh, you were right about that. And I'm like, yeah. And I think it goes here. And they're like, oh, that's a bit extreme. Totally. I'm like, okay, wait a little while. And then we catch up to that. And they're like, oh, damn, you were right about that too. And I'm like, and that leads here. And they're like, oh, that's a bit extreme. And I think that's been kind of what Canada has been doing all along, is like not seeing what is right in front of us, because that's a bit extreme. It'll never get there. They'll never build camps. They'll never have passport. They'll never do this. It's just that. So it's just that. And, I've been frustrated because I've kind of seen this, let's call it what it is, communism, opening the door and sticking its head in and looking around. And it reminds me very much of, it's kind of gone viral recently because people have also pointed out, a speech that Jordan Peterson made when he was talking about, the pronouns and everything as we were bringing those
sure.
And where that was going to lead. And I knew right from there that he was correct, that it's like, if we, as much as I want people to have that freedom, if we push this and make this a law, that just opens doors for all these other laws to come along.
Absolutely.
And that's right where we are right now, is we're suffering for basically our good nature.
Yeah, and sort of, like I can, yes and no, right? Because it's like, so firstly, hold on, I want to track back quick, because I was very much in a very similar camp. And to me, when the COVID, the vaccine passport, Joy, I don't know the lingo.
We're screwed, let's just go.
When they first came to be, my hard stance against it, and literally what I brought up in every single conversation with every person I spoke to about my massive opposition to it, was this is a very slippery slope, and this leads to here if you are not exceptionally careful about that. And what I saw in Canada was people once again, pretty kind of upset as a person who is Canadian, like how, we talk about being these critical thinkers, and like you said, like making fun of America like a bunch of dumb idiots or something like that. I don't mean that, because I've met plenty of American people and they're not all dumb idiots or something like that. But, Canada takes this kind of high and mighty sort of look, like, oh, we're better, blah, blah. And then it's like, no, we're fucking not. No one here is critically thinking about this. No one's looking several steps forward to what this does and what this looks like. Like lockdowns like that did not need to happen for nearly that long, so you can kill off all the small businesses and the people that have strove so hard to make your society for. It gets me actually fired up. I try not to. I don't want to talk about it too much, because it incenses me really when I think about this stuff. And I was the same as you, man. Just basically trying to highlight where things can go if people are not very aware, and that Canadians need to be standing up for things, and much faster. I was shocked at how I felt like people were bending over, and just cool with it. I'm like, look around the world, man. this is not the only approach, you know, and having spent like, so during the pandemic, I'll go a little further here. I think I've been in like 10 different countries, you know, I've traveled in, I don't know, a bunch here in Europe. So I was in Germany, Austria, now Switzerland, Sweden, technically France, Croatia, Slovenia, Costa Rica, technically Panama, technically US on little transits and stuff like that, Canada. And like I guess Denmark as well. I can just flat out say that the way we've approached it is not the right way to do it. And when I came back after being gone, like, so I didn't come back then. I was gone from Canada for like probably, I think it was like December of last year, basically through to August, because they started doing hotel quarantines. And I was like, nope, not participating in that bullshit. Yeah, just put me in a little mini prison for a little bit because, you know, whatever, I'm not complying with your rule right now. Anyway, so I avoided it for that long. And I was shocked at how long they kept doing it and how it actually got ruled on by the courts. Like, because there was a bunch of people fighting that, right? That it was violating Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they initially lost the court battles. And I was shocked as I was reading that. So fast forward, couldn't get back in. I was gone from the country for a long time, had exposure to all these different countries, could see a number of different methods. And you come back to Canada, and I'm visiting with friends and family and stuff. And man, like the fear is palpable, bro. Like the mental damage and trauma that I feel like the average Canadian went through in that periods of lockdown and all that, just like literally you can feel it on people. And it's just like, guys, like you're buying into the wrong story here, you know, like, and that's all it is. You know, it's like people are believing something that is, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that it can be handled in many different ways. You don't need to be afraid to that degree. And yeah, really disappointed in the lack of critical thinking, but super happy to see what's been going on in terms of these protests. Very happy to see how much, how peacefully it's been done and how well it's been, you know, just how well it's been done and how it's reached this kind of global level, because, you know, it really puts the politics and everything like that, it puts them right in the eye, the magnifying glass of the world. And I think that's really important right now, because Canada has been, in my opinion, just like dropped the ball big time.
Well, the insanity is so obvious, right? The insanity is so obvious and everyone's seeing it. And the more that this is being highlighted right now, I think, you know, and the more people kind of catch on, the better chance we have of actually doing something about it, because we are really kind of at a pivotal point with all of this right now where, and, you know, my worry all along has been that, you know, one thing will happen there at that gathering that the politics can then
mainstream
use.
Media and politics work. Right. Yeah.
Much
like they've already tried many times, right? Throwing in
they're already
racist,
trying, right? We'll take two photos of one flag in two different locations and we'll say, look at what they're doing, right? It's like, meanwhile, we got fucking little kids on bouncy castles, which is another thing. Now they're trying to find families for having their kids there, right? And like another member from one of our bands had reached out who has children and like pointed out that like they're now threatening parents with, if you don't give your children the lollipop, we might take your children away from you.
What?
Yeah. There's been court battles in Ontario where people have lost custody of their children, have lost visitation of their children because of that lollipop. Right? So we literally have a country who is acting as a state and getting between parents and children. And what I've witnessed it from, or what I've observed while witnessing all of this was, you know, the pivot point where people finally started doing something was when the kids got involved. And the first people to stand up and say, fuck you, no, were the mothers, were the parent, were the women, right? Yeah. And even to right now, it's like men are finally starting to get activated, but right away, and the majority of the people I see loudest about this are women. Why? Because you're fucking with the kids, and we're not taking that, right? Or women are just not going to put up with that. And then, of course, the male gets activated because they want to defend the women and children, right? And so that's what's finally led us to where we are right now. I think that's finally why people have decided to take some type of stand. And it's just unfortunate because, I mean, there are hundreds of thousands, a million people, a couple billion people, millions of people involved with this. And what our media keeps trying to do is minimalize us to one or two, or this small group, this small fringe with unacceptable views. Dude, it's your entire fucking country. You have to listen. You have to.
Yeah. Man, you know, it still shocks me how just how much people actually still buy into mainstream media narrative. Like that's another thing that's just absurd to me. And I'm like, you know, I'm happy that I think the bulk of people in like our generation and younger, I think are aware enough because of the internet and very like internet native that it's like what's being reported on isn't necessarily the whole picture. And very much that we need to be, you know, journalistic integrity is not a thing. It's headlines and fear mongering, right, to sell shit. So, but I'm still just blown away at how many people just buy into mainstream media narrative. And you know, I had a buddy from my my hometown there, Greyhurst, reached out. You know, after I made my post, a bunch of people actually reached out to me. And you know, we're saying thanks, you know, and he just basically said he'd gone to the Freedom Convoy with his family, and that it was amazing, like such a peaceful and great atmosphere, and that he, you know, obviously very much in agreement with what they're standing for, and how his family was now seeing him as this like racist, like Nazi or something like that. I'm like, are people buying into that? Is like people think that's what this is? Like, really? It just like, it blows my mind, man. It really, really blows my mind. Yeah, and I guess to go back to music, I wondered if I could show you a track or two, because this is very prominent themes and some. I'm fast tracking an EP right now, basically because of this entire experience, and there's definitely songs that speak directly to those ideas of, you know, just being aware of the story you're being sold. You know,
dude. On that tip, just go back and listen to our first Mindset record.
Oh, I mean, sure.
To be honest, like I recently was showing someone who had never heard it, like within a week, and March for a Madman.
I was gonna say March for a Madman, maybe Unfortunate
Equation. Even Random Reason in its own way. You know what I mean? It's all of these things, and I mean, I remember that experience, like Zeitgeist coming out long after we had written that album, and you know, some people close to us being like, "We need to start a band about this," and we're kind of like, "We've already got a band about this," you know. but going back, like, yeah, that's kind of what I know you and myself. That's been our part of our attraction to music, at least to the lyrical, is to be able to express these ideas and concepts and explore them, and also you know, deliver a message, if you will, that you know, there's a lot of love in the world, and we don't really have time for this fear. I mean, if we want to evolve as a species, we have to learn how to manage this fear better. And I do think that we're going through an evolution right now. I think that's basically what's happening in our world, is we're going through an evolution, and it's almost like there's this war between love and fear going on. And this global community, this one world order, this new world order, whatever you want to call them, seems to want to keep pushing this fear thing. But what I'm seeing is people are finally awake, standing up, being like, you know what? No, like, there's a lot of love here. Like, we all get along. Like, that dude's black, that dude's brown, I'm white, we don't give a fuck. You guys are the ones who give a fuck, right? Like, you guys are the ones who are telling us that we have to look at all of this differently. We're not actually looking at all of this differently. We're trying to bring this together. And it's all the people who claim to have the opposite agenda who are pushing this fear. It's really a wild thing to see, but it's almost comical to watch our House of Common right now. You know, like it reminds me of a spoof in a movie.
It reminds you of what?
Like a spoof. Like it can't, like, it's not
I
real.
couldn't believe it.
Like someone's making fun.
I was like, you know, obviously it was kind of hilarious when Trump was the president, in the sense that like everything was a meme and like, you know, a lot of hilarity. And I mean, the funny thing is too, is like, he's actually pointing out some sort of important things in a way. It's just that the guy delivering the message, unfortunately, it's like the baby with the bathwater, right? Like, you know, he actually was kind of in a way, I mean, he's not anti-establishment, but he, like, in a sense, he was like highlighting a few. Anyway, I don't want to get lost on that, but I literally left a comment on YouTube today, actually, after I watched that video, the parliamentary video, and those absurd comments, like associating people there with like Nazis and stuff within the parliament, like the Conservative Party. I couldn't even believe it, but fucking Prime Minister doing that. Wouldn't even say sorry. Jesus, how un-Canadian.
Well, it technically goes against our hate speech laws that guy pushes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, okay. And especially when you look at I forget the number because my memory doesn't like number. I think it's Bill C-30, this new internet censorship bill that they're trying to push, right?
So is that actually, like, I see, the thing is, man, being out here on the fringe, not in Canada, like, I'm hearing little nuggets about things like that, and I just don't know if they're true. I haven't researched it. I heard about that one too. I'm like, gee, like, what is going on here, man? Like, they gotta get rid of this guy.
So when was the last parliament break? In September, I believe it was. The Liberal government dropped it right before the break. They're like, we're going to introduce this. Okay, bye. Everybody's on break. All right. And in a way that kind of backfired because it actually gave people time to read it. And a lot of the people who read it were like, you can't do this. This is what China does with their internet. You can't do this. And so it keeps getting pushed back, and they retool it, reword it, and bring it back. It's the same things going on in the States with Biden's Build Back Better plan. They're just going to keep cutting it down, right? They hoped that nobody would read it. They hoped nobody would pay attention. They hoped they could get away with the same thing they got away with the Patriot Act back into 2001, where people would just be like so scared and so distracted that they wouldn't pay attention. Thankfully, that didn't happen, at least in the House of Commons. Enough people stood up to say, we need to look at this again. But the problem with it is, because of all the other craziness, it's getting buried. So you're like, people like you aren't hearing enough about it. But basically, this is the social credit system coming into effect with full censorship over the internet, which would mean that this conversation you and I are having right now, because I live in Canada, can't happen.
Yeah. I'm just so blown away, man, and I really, 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 really hope more and more people in Canada, like, wake up to all of that. And just, I was shocked he got voted in again, man. I just shocked. Couldn't even, disgusted. I'm just seeing how far this stuff has gone. Honestly, man, it just blows my mind. Like, it really, really blows my mind. Quick question. So I actually do kind of want to show you something here. Is it possible to, I'm going to run a quick test. I'm going to connect you to my interface here. And I'm going to play the beginning of a track. This will be probably out in a couple months. This is still demo version. Haven't fully done all the vocals and all that kind of stuff, but still sounds pretty decent. Okay.
It's not published by anybody, so I won't get a copyright claim. Last time I let a friend play one on my podcast, I got a copyright claim on my podcast.
Really? All right. Well, here's what I'm. Okay, so
you'll be fine. You're the producer. You own it. You're fine.
Totally. if this plays and it only sounds like it's coming through a microphone, or can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
If this plays and it only sounds like it's coming out of microphone, then we don't want that. If it sounds like it's playing like a real track and people who are listening can hear it like a real track, then we'll let it play for like a minute or something like that. But just quickly tell me if this is the case. Can you hear anything?
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, it just came in. Yeah.
Through a microphone or
it doesn't. It sounds like it's coming through the interface, but let it go for a minute. One more time.
Okay, there we go.
Can't hear anything now.
It's too bad now.
Yeah. You can do share screen.
But will that allow you to hear audio?
Yeah, it'll play through your computer and therefore come right through. So if you just put it like a media player.
I already had it in a media player. All right, let's do that quick because it's very in line with everything that we're talking about right now. So if there was a time to show a new track, P.S. I haven't shown any of this to any of the world. So
I don't know the share screen too well, but I think you just have to click it and then it'll give you the.
Yeah, I'll do that. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Ooh, let me change that.
Okay. Thank you, host.
You're welcome. Does that work?
Here we go. Let's see. Screen share. Oh, here we go. Bam. I don't know if that'll work. Okay, share computer sound. Boom. Let's try that. Oh, apparently I gotta enter a password and stuff.
I don't do it.
Between the lines, to read between the lines.
Now we just need to be able to hear you again. We're back to normal. I don't hear you. We lost your voice. We got your music.
Hello.
Hello. There we go. And you're back. Welcome back.
Back. Sorry about that.
That was a little taste of Francis Farmer. So
they could hear on your side, but did it have volume? Like I can't.
Yeah, the music sounded fine, and then once you stopped, you were just missing. So whatever, we got you back now. It's
all right. Well,
interface.
I would have liked that both of us could also be being able to be talking as it was kind of going on. You know what I mean? But
yeah, damn technology doesn't always cooperate.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the Francis Farmer thing a little bit. So obviously you started as an acoustic project. At that time, I remember you were like and you mentioned earlier too, like kind of playing some acoustic shows for money. It was also a way to practice for you because as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, singing and playing at the same time, you were always incredible at playing. And then while you were learning how to sing and connecting the two of them was it's a challenging thing to do. It's not not as easy as people seem to think that it is. And that was how you were really kind of training yourself how to do it. And it kind of gave birth to Francis Farmer as its own entity. So
yeah, so fully gonna echo what you just said. Yeah, the first while, man, I think it's just because singing and playing really is like it's a brain fuck. You know, doing polyrhythms, you know, like multiple rhythms at the same time, multiple things at the same time. And I think as a person who's not really used to getting things pretty quickly, when I couldn't get it, like immediately on certain things or things were challenging, like, I can't do that. And it really took, at least not with mindset, because the fucking guitar stuff and the vocals are really hard. And to do them both at the same time, just not easy, man. So it took a lot to develop any level of proficiency there. And actually, a lot of it was Ryan Chalmers that firstly just said, you can do it. You just don't know how to do it now. You can do it. And that was really important. And then he kind of showed me some techniques to really learn how to do those kind of polyrhythms. And I, you know, being an expert drummer, that's kind of the nature of what drums are, right? So I guess piano too. So anyway, that really helped. And then yes, to get back to the Francis Farmer thing, yeah, I had started playing a bunch more acoustic shows, a lot of time covers and things like that. And, you know, I was pretty good at like, even since like late teens, I'd been pretty decent at doing like some, you know, Nirvana songs and things like that. I could wrap my head around singing and playing. I mean, some of them were still hard, but it was like I could get that, you know, and then it was into the trickier rhythm stuff of like, say, like a March for a Madman or like one of these other tracks we're talking about where it was like, I don't think I can do that. But in doing a lot of those acoustic shows, and you know, it just started like playing for friends, mostly like around a campfire and that kind of thing. Super Canadian, right? Wearing flannel shirts and dousing ourselves in maple syrup. And then started doing it to earn some money, and it was really great practice. And the thing is, like when you're singing and playing and you're doing acoustic shows by yourself, is like you know, you live or die by the sword, if you will. It's like if it sucks, it's because you did it, and if it's great, it's because you did it. You know, and that, so it was really good for building confidence and stuff like that too, in the sense that, you know, you're bound to fuck up a lot, and you're so raw. Like at least with a band, if you kind of trip up a little bit on your guitar or your vocal, there's a lot of other noise going on that you can, you know, kind of covers it. You just have to pick up quickly. With that, not so much. so it's really good for that. And then as I was doing that, I actually had a number of people who are close to me say at that time, hey man, why don't you do like an acoustic record or something? You know, you've been doing mine's super heavy, and you know, I mean, that's a relative term, heavy, but that kind of started it. Now, like when it's kind of one of those things for me where if I've got some people close to me, when I kind of hear, it was like all of a sudden within a week, I heard like, you know, 3 people close to me more or less say, hey, why don't you do an acoustic record? I was like, oh, okay, sure, maybe there's something to this. So I did that, and that was the nature of the first album. Still, like I said, a lot of them are rock songs just on an acoustic guitar, but it was cool to do that and like do a lot of like string arrangements. And that was really like one of my first, I guess Can't Wait and a couple other tracks. On My Way actually is probably for those kind of couple tracks were the first foray into like arranging strings and that kind of orchestral type stuff. And then that album really lent itself to that. And then, you know, as we talked about earlier, Mindset broke up. A whole bunch of shit crashed down in life, and then, you know, I had still been writing those songs on acoustic guitar and stuff, but at this point I had really realized, I was like, these aren't really acoustic songs, they're rock songs. So I started demoing tracks on my own, just programming drums and you know, writing tracks like that. And then, you know, partway through that process, you know, it's like, okay, well, I need to find a drummer to record drums. I need to find other people, wanted to collaborate with different people, wanted to actually play in a band again. At that point, that became clear that it was like, okay, I'm a rock musician. That's where my heart is. I like hard rock. I like that stuff. I want to play in a band. So it took a little while, you know, to really get a bunch of the tracks, you know, done, and then to find bandmates and a bunch of people, as you know, man, like finding people that are like both cool musicians that you get along with, that are reliable people, you know, and all can get behind the same kind of music and the same vision and want to like move forward together. That's a thing, man. There's a few really big boxes to check there, right? So Francis Farmer in its presence form. That took a while to get there, and finally completed the Rebirth album, aptly titled Rebirth. It was July 23rd, finally got it all out to Spotify and Apple Music and all those other major platforms. We had released some songs on like Bandcamp and other independent sort of platforms before that. Yeah, I had a number of music videos, but then like I took it down, you know, recreated that logo that's on your t-shirt. Looks a little warped. It's actually a little rectangle, but redid all that kind of stuff, kind of building anew, and finally got that out there. So it's really awesome, and really happy to have finally gotten that record out there, because, you know, like some of those songs are so old for me that it's like I just wanted to get it done and out there, you know. And it's constantly this journey, both as a songwriter but also as like a sound engineer and producer. Like, you know, we were first learning how to do any of that stuff. First time with any of our own gear, first time with any of our own, like, you know, working Pro Tools, learning how to do all that shit back in hindsight. You know, but to get good at being a sound engineer on top of being a decent musician is like, it's a whole other world, man. You know, just a whole other world. And you can literally dedicate the same amount of time to being like a musician, like your 10,000 hours, if you will, you know. So, you know, as I went even with the first Mindsight record, you know, by the time we made it to like the last couple tracks, like Reinfected and Anguish Cost and On My Way, those were like all our favorite mixes and songs at that point, you know. So same thing would happen then in Francis Farmer when I was making Rebirth, you know. You're going back and remixing and revisiting songs, blah, blah, blah. So finally fucking finished it. And it felt really nice to be done that and get it out. And now I feel like my ability to both as an engineer has gotten way better, and the ability to turn over tracks has also improved, like just from like, you know, being able to go from moment of writing a song to being done with it. It's like, that's getting a lot faster and producing, you know, better results every time. So
I'd imagine you've run into some complications too because of the joy and whatnot. I mean, you had just kind of set up the live band here in Canada, and now you are no longer. Yeah.
So yes.
So are you working on trying to find the same with German counterparts over there?
Yeah, you know, that's the other thing, man. We didn't really touch on it, is like, as a musician, like, it's crazy to have not performed in that amount of time. Like, you know, like that's just, you know, one of the things I love. I love songwriting and I love performing. Like, those are probably the two like things that I love about being a musician. And then there's a whole lot of other work that I am not a huge fan of, including, say, social media or whatnot. Although you can make it fun, I guess. But yeah, when this happened, man, like my one of the longest standing bandmate I had and good friend, he was like one of my best friends for years. Anthony, you know, he just kind of fell by the wayside, man. I think it just started as, I think he was really struggling, like mental health wise, when everything happened. You know, I think a lot of people that were used to kind of the routine, like the going to a job, the going to gyms, going out to clubs, doing whatever it is, like those kind of things. But people, you know, I'm going to say that those are things for him that were very fundamental. And like, you know, you and I, we talked about this actually throughout the pandemic and early on, is like, I think we're better equipped to deal with a lot of this because we've spent so much time with ourselves in honing our crafts or doing creative efforts that you know, we're already cool with it. So like, what's the difference, right? But for a lot of people that are really reliant on those routines and that kind of outer world kind of stuff, they really struggled. And that was definitely the case with him. So it started, I think, in that way. And, you know, I'd hear back like, you know, a month later kind of thing, and he'd be like really apologetic. And so, you know, I was super sympathetic and empathetic for like a really long time. And it got really crazy because, you know, we're working to close out that album, working on a new logo at the time, working on album artwork, working on all these things. And, you know, when you're working with bandmates, you know, you're involved and they're involved in the decision-making process. It's not just, you know, it's not just they're like, it's a team member. So you want their opinion, you want their approval, you want their like stamp and like their heart to be in it. Right. So that was getting like, I was like, you know, I got to these points where I was just like, I can't sit here and wait 2 months or a month for a response on these things. Like, I'm not going to stop. Maybe, you know, and I think it also becomes more clear that like for some people, music is kind of like a thing, you know, like they're, for whatever reason, it's kind of like a part of their life. But for me, it's like, it's the times when I've thought about giving up, man, it's crazier to think about not doing music. Like that piece, I'm like, I don't even know. You know, so yes, this period of time, that was the most solid bandmate I'd had in Francis Farmer and a number of other drummers. Joel will get a good honorable mention here, Joel Rosinski, because he was a great teammate as well when he was in the band. He's a videographer first and foremost. He's the one responsible for, you know, the most responsible for our music videos. But he had kind of already left the band. And so Anthony and I were looking for new drummers at that time. And I'd found 2 really solid other guitar players, that, you know, Cody and Pat, Anth's brother, who I'm still close with. Yeah, man. So I guess like a lot of other people, yeah, I lost, I know I'm not the only one to have had their band more or less dissolve or break up through this period, right? I think the performance aspect is the win for, you know, most. And when you don't get that win, it's like, why the fuck put up with all the other tough shit if you're not, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a lot of it for me. That's kind of why I kind of almost thought about like just not touching music again, because, you know, after the Mind Site, you say it broke up or just dissolved, whatever happened,
yeah.
We just kind of put it to sleep. Obviously Unraveling is a recording project, right? Like we
did that one live show.
We had one live show, and even
fun.
that, like, but that was a shitty experience for a whole other reason, totally personal. But just before the Joy hit, my roommate also makes music, and he did an album. It's called Sylvia's Taco Salad, The Luncheon, and I sang on one of the songs for him. And he wanted to do a live show. So basically what we did was he did like 20 minutes of ad-libbing music. Yeah. And I just freestyled vocals over top of it. But the result was that like that fire was lit again, right? Like, you know me,
Sure.
As soon as you put a fucking microphone in my hand or a camera in front of my face,
Oh, yeah.
like Shaynard comes out, right? So Shaynard had been sleeping for a long time, and then the dress got put on, and I ended up on a stage, and it all came back. And we were, you know, we came home from that show. We were so pumped. Let's do more of these. We had all these plans. We had people who wanted to give us gigs, and then lockdown, everything's closed. And it's pretty much been that way since. I did one of these with another, you know, professional musician. He said the same thing. It's like, at this point, do you even want to play the gigs? Because first of all, it means you have to be lollipopped, and some of us might be the ones who are lollipop hesitant, and even if we're not, you know, the spirit of music is to include and to unity and the gathering, and to like actually be playing in a venue, an establishment for a place that has that segregation kind of hurts the cause in a way, right? I mean, yeah, I can't help but see the irony in, you know, the Rage Against the Machine stance. You know, like they're now forever known as cuck for the machine, as far as I'm concerned. But you know, I can't understand that. And so, you know, artists, creative type people who are kind of in that gig-based economy, you know, there still hasn't been a recovery point yet.
Sure. Yeah, you know, like, to be fair, man, like the reason why, you know, there was a couple times throughout this when Nestle was, you know, really encouraging me to find, you know, other bandmates and other thing, because, you know, she sees how hard I work at it. And, you know, when you're constantly the one trying to drive or light your own fire sometimes, like without having, like, and I guess on the flip side, I was trying to drag along, you know, another person or the people, then it's like that's also like pulling you when you're trying to push. And you know, so to have people that are like stoked and fuel my fire, so I work even fucking harder and go even more at it, is like, she's like, you know, like trying to encourage that. And the reason why, like, I kind of, at least for that first while, as I was, you know, rebuilding the website, logos, building an online store, finishing the record, blah blah blah, I was just like, I don't want to, because it's like I've got all these other things, and like the real incentive, you know, at that point would be like, it's going to be tough to find bandmates when we don't know when we're going to play a show, when we might not be allowed to gather in the same space, or, you know, wear a mask, or whatever the fuck it happens to be. So like for a long time, I was just like, I can't see, the end isn't in sight yet for me. So it's like, that's been another thing that's been probably amongst the most challenging, is, you know, like, I think as a musician, you know, that is really striving for something, you know, you really want to be playing those big festivals and things like that, right? And like, when you can't see dates or shows, and you can't book shows because you don't know if you're going to be able to fucking play them, it's like that, when you're going through the harder work of things, you need that anchor point in the future to like grab onto and be like, this is what I'm gunning for. So, you know, to pull yourself to it, you know, you can even take that metaphysically, if you will. And without it, man, like most people are going to give up on doing music. I would say, you know, most, and it's only the people that are like fucking die hard like me that are, you know, and obviously lots of other people out there, but you know, I don't blame other people for it. So yeah, man, fucking tricky. And on the flip side, let's go the other way, you know, because I wasn't performing, it's like, you know, if you're going to be a good musician, you got to fucking practice your balls off all the time, you know, especially your voice. It's like going to the gym, right? And my voice is very out of shape. Like, I've probably been able to go do a show and do very well at it really right this second. But it gives you the opportunity. So I was able to like focus on, you know, finishing the record, building a website, building all these online channels, starting to get some social media stuff in line, building them, you know, all of that other stuff that's fundamentally needed this day and age. If you want to expand and success in, you know, in a monetary fashion, you require those things. So we gave the opportunity for that. And I mean, like, I've also got, like I said, I've got this next EP, probably going to call it Isolation, with respects to all of this. Probably like 5 or probably 6 tracks. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then I've got the next album, which I had originally intended, Revenge, which is fucking awesome. Like, but it's heavier, like a lot of stuff that was coming out through like writing live. There'll be like another 9 or so tracks on that are a good portion of the way there. And that's what I was planning on doing right now. But so got all that. And I also demoed, like, you know, at this point, my demos are pretty fucking solid. Like just programming drums, playing the instruments, doing all that stuff. I got probably like another 10 to, I don't know, give or take another 10, 15 maybe other tracks that are in like reasonable demo form now. So that's the flip side, man. You got to do all of those things and like get better at mixing I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a silver lining to it. I think for a lot of creatives, like, and you mentioned the other thing too, that we were kind of, you know, better equipped to deal with all of this. Like, we were actually just having this discussion here the other day. Like, I'm not one to go to bars. I'm not one to go out and do that thing. The only thing I really miss is the gym, and I can work out at home, you know, like there's workarounds for it. It's, but you know, that other side of it, like, concerts coming up that I want to go to. In This Moment is opening for fucking Slipknot, and
Sure, who is?
In This Moment, which you know I love.
Oh yeah, sure.
They're opening for Slipknot at Budweiser stage, or Budweiser Gardens, whatever the fuck it's called. And like, I'm now looking at illegally getting security to sneak me in because of my lack of lollipops. But even that, you know, like, talking to them, they're like, oh, we're coming to Toronto to play a show, please come. I'm like, sorry guys, but I kind of can't because my government has these stupid fucking rules. And I am one of those people with the let's say I'm naturally sweetened because I've had it, I kicked it.
Yeah.
Right. And so doesn't make any sense to me, but that's kind of the state of it. And when it comes to music, like, even a friend of mine who is in an active band talking about going to jam spaces in the city and having them separate, and like they actually come in your jam space and make sure that you're social distancing, you know, like, it's
Canada's fucking absurd right now, man. Like,
I know.
Absurd.
Yeah. And all that aside, I mean, I've kept you for a couple hours now. I should probably wrap this up. We'll have to do another one another day, but you know, advice not only for maybe the musician out there who's looking for some type of inspiration to push forward, but maybe for all of us right now to kind of, you know, push through all of this nonsense. What would you want to say to people?
I would probably put them almost both in the same camp, where I think it's about just finding that what's within you, that kind of deeper core, you know. And there have been moments, we spoke about this early in the pandemic, where, you know, I really didn't know what was going on. And there was a few times where I was legitimately scared and fearful, like, actually, you know, not being sure what's going on. And one of the tracks on this upcoming EP kind of plays this dichotomy of that, and switching back to being able to turn inside. You know, I close my eyes and turn inside, and, you know, and there I find the peace of the world, you know. And like, there's some real truth to that, man. And you know, you're the one writing the story all the time, every single moment. You can grab a hold of it and change it every single moment. So I would say to really dig into yourself, find that, like, that core within, and then know what that is and how you can push that out to the world. You know, thankfully, I found music a long time ago, and found some inner strength with that, and a way of expressing. And now it's about turning that outward and giving that value to the world for people to benefit. So I would say, you know, I think the other big one, sorry, just to close out, find that, be good with it, be good with yourself, and able to bring that out to the world. I think that's one of the most important things anyone can do. Be solid within yourself, you know, because you can't give anyone value if you're angry or whatever it is yourself. Next one I would say is listening. So much of this is so nuanced, and I feel like listening is a very underrated skill. You know, as the expression goes, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Use them accordingly. I mean, just the ability to listen to another person and disagree, that doesn't mean that that's supposed to be what democracies and everything is about. That's supposed to be what our society is about. We're supposed to be allowed to be different, have differing points of view. You know, like, you and I butted heads many times, but, you know, you listen to what I'm saying and you respond. You speak, I listen to what you're saying, and then I respond. So I'd say that.
Well said. I will drop links in the description for the video, but tell people where they can find you and Francis Farmer.
Yeah, francisfarmer.com. That good one. Instagram at Francis Farmer. I thankfully got a lot of good web real estate. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. And that was really, really great to talk to you, man. It's so funny because I feel like I probably could have talked to you for like another 3 hours and not even batted an eye, you know, because it's been so long since you and I have even had a chance to like catch up as buddies or whatever, right? We kind of knew this was coming up and like text a little bit, but now we'll wait till we're talking.
Oh, exactly. And then when, like I said, we'll probably have to do this again, maybe in a couple months or something, and see how this all works out, because we are kind of on. I think
other than Canada, man, I think we are pushing through to the other side right now. I actually do believe that. Sorry, it's your show. I should shut the fuck up and let you wrap.
No. It's your show. You're the book that we're putting on the shelf here, right? So, but yeah, I kind of agree with you too. I think that even if Canada, maybe a couple other people or a couple other places, I mean, are a little bit slow to catch up, it does feel like the majority is finally on the side of reason, right? And that should be enough to push this through. And if it's not, then I've been right all along. The world's been run by the Illuminati, and we're all kind of screwed anyways. So like, it doesn't really matter. But anyways, brother. Yeah.
Let's hope for the former. Or maybe they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but let's still hope. Let's still push forward with the reason and the love side of things.
Exactly. And on that note, I love you. It's been fucking too long since I've got to hold you in my arms. We hug each other in a very inappropriate way a lot of the time. It's okay, we were in a band together. But otherwise, man, thank you. I'm glad that you're doing well over there despite all the craziness. Hopefully you can find a way to get out and play some shows when things calm down over there too. I know that you need that, and it's one of your many gifts to this world. Thank you for being in my life.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. I love you too, and I'm really happy that you're doing this and writing and you're finding ways to channel that creativity. It's tough to put that fire out, right? So
never goes away, right?
Thank you very much. Man.
To quote Distant, it never goes away. So there you go.
All
right. We'll say goodbye to people at home.
Air pounds.